What's next for IT? In today's economy, technology touches every aspect of the day-to-day operations of business. There has never been more pressure on IT to deliver for our organizations. So what can we expect over the next decade? We need to think differently about how we approach our work to continue to thrive into the future. This requires all of us to be intentional in how we look at our role going forward. Smart IT is an approach to getting the important things done by transforming the way we think, work, and lead. And now, let's disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk the smart IT way. Welcome to another episode of the Smart IT Podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into a very important topic, one that's critical for society as a whole, and one that's dear and close to the heart of many parents. We're going to be talking today about education, and we're going to be talking about how IT and tech intersects with that topic. Today, I'm looking forward to talking with Scott. So, Scott, welcome to the Smart IT Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So we actually met each other near the end of 2023, in a workshop on facilitation. So it was good to meet you there. It's always good to meet new people in different environments. So we connected online, took a look at what you were doing, and what you were doing really stood out to me. So I said, I need to talk to Scott about this topic, and I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of us in our audience probably has been to quite a bit of classroom time, spent a lot of time doing a lot of homework, everything from grammar school to high school up to college. So I guess we should start there, Scott. So kind of your origin story of how you got into the education field.
Yeah, I guess it's been over 25 years now. Started teaching, taught high school English and social studies. And then decided to band together with some friends and other colleagues and take a venture on moving out of public schools for a minute and starting a small nonprofit private school. This was back in 1997. And so I think now they would consider these micro schools, but at the time it was just a school with 30 kids, and it's called the Griffin School, and there are 120 kids now. So I did that for a period of time, about 4 years, served as a teacher and administrator there, and then decided to get into school leadership, got the leadership bug, and started here in Austin as an assistant principal, moved into a director role of a school within a school, an academy, and then went on there to become a high school principal. Also worked in district offices. And after my time working as a high school principal and for district leadership, went into the education technology field, both with a company running operations for a computer science curriculum company that taught students curriculum science through game design, and did that for a number of years, and as well started a small education technology incubator here in Austin, out of a place called Capital Factory, and then from there moved into working with a group of people as a founding team member for an organization called the Holdsworth Center, which focuses on developing public school and school district leaders here in Texas. And I worked on data strategy and consulting with school districts then, and did that for almost 7 years, and now work as an independent consultant, working with school leaders and school districts around technology and data use and design are my big focus topics.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. So you got a lot of kind of firsthand exposure and experience to the student side, the teacher side, and then up to the administrative side. So I kind of like that broad breadth of exposure.
Yep.
So we've been in the field for a little bit of a while. So over the last 2 decades, anything right on top of your head that says, wow, education has changed so much from back then to today. Anything top of mind that just says, wow, this is things that, we're talking about and dealing with?
Yeah, I might say a lot. It's interesting because a lot has changed, and then there are things that haven't changed. So we'll start with the what has changed. There's so much data being collected now because of the amount of technology that has come into play over the last 20 years, specifically around learning. I mean, technology got its start really, and I'm old enough that my first technology systems were mainframe systems
Yeah.
in schools, and so we've obviously moved a long way to desktop applications, to cloud applications, which is obviously the dominant form now. But most of that was on the administrative side, and what we've seen is really a growth in learning technologies, classroom technologies, both on the teacher side as well as on the student learning side. And now we're entering a whole new age with AI and generative AI and how that's coming into play in classrooms. And so probably the biggest change, I would say, is the level and the amount of data that we've seen being collected around students and the amount of technology use in the classroom that we've seen, especially since the pandemic. And so many schools went to more one-on-one technologies, and meaning that students have, every student has a device that they're able to use. It used to be computer labs and then carts of computers, which is still both there, but technology has become less of an event to where, we're all going to go use technology towards something that is just used as part of what students and teachers do in the classroom.
Well, you're trying to bring back memories here because I'm thinking about how much tech I had in the classroom when I was in school.
It was an overhead projector and maybe one of those. I don't know how old you are, but for me, it was those reels of the film strips.
Yes, I remember both those. So when the teacher wanted something on the screen, she'd cut the lights down, pull the screen down, then the overhead
the plastic
projector.
Sheets,
so there was zero computers. Yes. No laptops. So then everything was recorded by hand. So that was interesting. So I don't think I've been into an actual classroom in quite a while. So kind of what's in the classroom these days? I know all the students are coming in with the smart devices, but what does it look like from a tech standpoint inside?
Interestingly, well, I will say from a design standpoint, because that's my other big focus, not much has changed, sadly. And the classroom that you were in probably looks like a lot like the classroom that exists today in many schools. Now, a lot of schools have sort of, especially newer schools, are designed somewhat differently. But the single student desks in rows with a teacher at the front is probably still very common, all too common. If I could take a magic wand and get rid of one thing, it would be all of those single student desks that are like little cages that should not exist anymore, but do. And probably the biggest difference is the move from the blackboard. Some smart boards have been in play, but certainly projectors are pretty ubiquitous as far as digital projectors. So teachers using computers to project versus the old plastic and handwritten projectors. So it's not a transformational. Some if you're I don't know if you're familiar with the Sammer model of technology, but it's the substitution and augmentation, really parts of the S&A that really have happened more in schools than any kind of really transformational technology that's dominant. So the classroom, there's probably one-on-one devices. I think at younger ages, tablets maybe are somewhat common, but a lot of Chromebooks and students coming in and out of those for different reasons. But the ability for learning and assignments to happen I'm not going to say 24/7, but you can turn things in now without having to be physically present because it's being turned in online. So learning management systems are a big piece of that, to where you'll have content assignments that are digital, or digitally scanned in and
Yeah.
and utilized that way. But unfortunately, the changes haven't been as great as what you see in other industries as far as technology and the high use of technology, and that would be on the user side, especially. So
Very interesting, because we always exploring about, we see all this new tech out there. We have it at home, we have it in stores, and we just assume it's like ubiquitous everywhere, right? Now, has one thing changed? I got to ask about this. I remember even in high school having to lug all those books in my backpack. It really hurt the back. So have we actually seen a change in that, where when the students come and show up at school, it's just a little bit lighter because everything, more, at least more things are now digital?
you would think so, and to some degree, yes. But again, another one of these late to the game changes, and I think this has to do with I think there's some laws and some equity issues around home access to technology, right? And so that's still, especially in public schools, that's still a big uh, something that rests on, especially administrators and lawmakers' minds, is access. And so there are still lots of textbooks. Whether they're used or not is a sort of another question. And so I don't know that they're used as much as we would have used textbooks, or that textbooks were used 20 years ago. But textbooks still very much exist. Workbooks still exist, and are used. Maybe not quite as much and quite as heavy in the backpack, but still ever present. And depending on where you are and what your access, especially to Wi-Fi, is, you'll see differences in different areas, rural versus urban, different neighborhoods, and populations.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was hoping to hear that, like, if I walked into a school today, I wouldn't be able to recognize it. It'd be like the Jetsons,
It
right?
would be just like the
everything.
school that you went to, unfortunately, for the most
So you
part.
mean when I walked through, so when I walk through the door, I'm not automatically, my attendance isn't automatically updated to let them know, and it's an automatic alert to the parent to say your student, your child is here and
No,
safe and things like
those
that.
actually have so some of the technologies around gradebooks and attendance keeping. Certainly, there's electronic access. So there's lots of this is sort of where I go to the data end of things on the administrative side. So you have seen, entry and exit. You'll have either ID cards or ways to swipe in and swipe out. You will have attendance. Everything is being done electronically, and so as a parent, you'll get alerts if your student isn't present or is marked absent. You'll get alerts around grades and grading. So electronic grade books. Structurally, it looks the same. You'll see cameras, you'll see pads on the doors. But lunchtime, I'll swipe my ID to pay for my lunch. So there is a lot of that that's structurally built in. And certainly newer schools and newer buildings, you'll see a lot of times, especially the ones that are focused around more modern design, you will see look more like what you might see in an open office concept, where there's more open window spaces and different kinds of seating, than you might see in other places. In older schools. But structurally, schools, where a lot of the schools were built between the 50s, in the 80s and 90s. And so you're getting the structural stuff, which is, it's hard and very expensive to update and replace. So newer buildings that were built really in the last 20 years or so, you'll start seeing some differences in design and the way that they're built. But anything older than that is just trying to retrofit new technology. And so a lot of the changes have been behind the walls, in the wiring, in the networks, in the ways that they are trying to operate within the confines of a big, heavy brick cinder block building. So,
Oh man. So we got some work still to do.
yes, we do. I think we do.
Okay. So some biggest areas of potential improvements from a technology usage. I know you do a lot of work with data.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about the main topic really for schooling is improving outcomes. In this case, is learning outcomes for students. So what are we seeing kind of emerging as better ways to make use of all this data that's being collected front end, back end on students that can really help us really on the main thing of outcomes? Are students learning faster? Are they learning more? For students who used to struggle in the past, is it helping them to improve their ability to grasp the topics?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do think that the topic around data, and this goes, this is an IT podcast. This goes back into the IT and the infrastructures and the ways that data is collected. A lot of school districts, again, there's, and I'm speaking in a general sense, still are in data silos and IT silos, right? And so we have a lot of disconnected databases for different systems. So all of the different software systems that we have often dump their data into a bespoke database that is not collected to other databases, right? And so having a data warehouse is, I'm not going to say a new concept in schools. It's been around for a while, but it's not a big piece of this. And certainly something like a data lake or even more advanced technologies, you're not going to see a lot of. There's different efforts to connect data sources and to drive that interconnections. Several around the country. One locally that's locally here out of Austin called the EdFi Alliance does a lot of work, and that's been around, I guess for 15, almost 20 years now, and is funded through the Michael and Susan Bell Foundation. And it's a nonprofit, and they have an open source software and APIs and different technology tools to be able to bring data together for better use. And so when we talk about using the data, there is the data use that we have is definitely the issue. I'll make a distinction. The way that our schools operate, I think going from over the last 20 years has been a move towards this idea of being data driven. What that looks like in schools is we will take data after the event happens. So a test, especially a big state test or a benchmark test, and then we will sit down again as sort of an event and analyze that, and then make our decisions based on what's happened, right? And affectionately, I like to call, and others have liked to call this autopsy data, right? And so what I think the movement is towards, and what I like to focus on is data informed decisions, right? And so how do you use data along the way to make better in the moment decisions around learning? And that to me is the next phase. And also I think the promise of what some of these large machine learning models and the different ways that we're able to utilize AI now to take large data sets and do more with them in quicker ways to get to that data informed piece. And so it's sort of hit or miss by school, by teacher. Some use a lot of data in the moment, but generally as a practice, education is a little bit behind the game on using in the moment data to be able to inform how we make decisions around student learning.
So that's fascinating, because when you start to think about areas and places where teachers can intervene earlier, so they don't leave like 5 to 10% of the class behind, as they move on to the next chapter or next set of skills or new learning materials, they can intervene in hours or days or weeks, as opposed to getting to the end of the school semester or the school year, having the person struggle in that particular section of the test, and like, oh man, they have to like buckle up later. It's like that's something like a missed opportunity if we can't leverage that data early on, like to identify those areas, intervene earlier, get the parents involved, maybe tutors. So let's talk a little about this, because I really seem that's really the whole crutch of the promise of this newer technology is, let's not wait 3 weeks or 4 months to intervene and help these students kind of overcome a struggle. And let's be better informed as a class, as a school, as a whole district, is the ones who are picking up this material, are there any commonalities? Are there any commonalities with the ones that are struggling with the materials? Can we identify that? So I guess let's talk a little bit more about that.
So the short answer is yes, we can. The bigger answer is it being done as a part of practice? And so for me, the focus when you think about it is how are we working as adults within our systems to leverage this data? I think we've moved from months into days or weeks. But really what the technology offers now is more in the moment. I mean, it should be minutes, right? I should be able to get a result, get some analysis, and be able to sort of make the next choice and decision, which is what true differentiation is. And I think that's, it's been a buzzword in education for a really long time, is this idea of differentiation. But when you look at it from the perspective of a teacher that has 25, 30 students in front of them, the sheer impossibility of doing that, of really knowing in the moment every single kid and where they're at, it's just too much for the human brain to handle. I don't care how talented you are, it's not, to ask our teachers to do that is more than is really humanly possible, right? And so what we have is the advantage of technology to assist with that, right? And so we need to, in my opinion, we need to leverage that technology to support educators to be able to make better decisions. And I don't want to sort of sound alarmist, but I do believe that there is I'm not going to say it, maybe I'll call it a dirty little secret of education, that everyone's out there just taking their best guess, right? And that's all you can do. And they're educated guesses. They're not wild guesses. We're not throwing darts at a board, right? But you can know what you can know about your students, and you do the best you can to look for those patterns, to be able to identify different needs of different students. And our teachers, God bless all of our teachers who are out there working so hard to meet the needs of every student. But from just a pure human capability standpoint, there's only so far that the human mind can go in constantly identifying patterns and seeing things, which is where technology comes into play to provide that assistance, right? And so it's what I know. One study that I remember reading about referred to as the centaur model of technology with AI, right? It's AI. Is a study on chess, and after Big Blue was able to beat chess masters, right? And so, the AI beat the human, right? The supercomputer beat the human, but then you give the human a computer against that supercomputer, and the human's going to win, right? Because they can make better decisions leveraging the technology. And that's really the model that I hope grows, and not what I see is the AI making the decisions, the student did this, therefore this is the best decision forward as the computer makes that decision. I don't know that that's the best way to go either, but how do humans leverage, how do our teachers, we put technology in our teachers' hands to be able to leverage what the analysis is telling us to then use what my knowledge is of the students and the situations and the learning to make the best informed decision for what to do next for each child or for groups of children going forward. So that's where I think the big advantages of what we have today, and where I hope to see data use and technology go, is bringing together multiple data sources, leveraging that from a human perspective, from the strength of what the teachers are bringing into the classroom, and allowing the teachers to use that to make decisions, not trying to replace the teachers with computers.
Interesting, very interesting. So we're talking to IT leaders right now. If they're in the room right now with the principal and the teachers right now, and they're getting feedback about what they could use help with, do we think it's a funding problem? You mentioned some data isolation. I know some big corporations still struggle as well, even with big budgets, right? There are other reasons why the data isn't being shared and analysis isn't done at scale. So from an IT standpoint, what do you think the challenges or the obstacles lay? Budgeting, is it vision? Is it just understanding more what the teachers are going through on a daily basis? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think from an IT perspective, and again, other people that are working really hard, but I do believe that a lot of our IT talent in school districts is being wasted trying to hack together and combine data after the fact. So we're trying to pull data from multiple systems, and then we're asking our IT folks to spend their time, hacking this stuff together, as opposed to probably what their talents and skills are better suited for, which is not, hacking together spreadsheets, right? That's not a good use of IT talent. But a lot of times that's where we wind up. So interconnectivity is, I think, a big thing. And to me, there is an expense issue, and there's also a capabilities. Do I have the staff to be able to maintain that? But again, and I'm not, even though I'm actually wearing an EdFi shirt right now, I am not. I'm a bit of an EdFi evangelist, but I do not get paid or work for them. But that's free. That's open source. But it does require money and time to get that set up. Now, there are solutions looking forward. In Texas, for instance, the state is helping to develop EdFi ODSs for every school district. So they'll have their own ODS where they can bring data together. And then there's an open platform called the Texas Education Exchange, where they're going to start putting different programs and ways that you can utilize that combined data. So interconnectivity, I think, needs to be, you mentioned vision, both on the vision side and on the priority side, needs to be moved up, right? And so as opposed to us continuing down this siloed road, as hard as it is, where can we find the little opportunities to bring data together and to help us utilize the multiple data sources that we have in a connected way, and then provide on the other end. So the connectivity is one part, and then the accessibility is the other part. It can't be difficult to access, right? To be able to use that data, I can't have to put everyone through lots of training, right? And so I like to say our tools need to be as easy as booking a flight online, right? And if we can get to that point where access is self-evident, where I can just go in, get the things that I need, come out again, and it's not us having to have a data meeting, which unfortunately is the norm right now. Data is not an event. Data is part of what we do and needs to be treated that way. So it is ubiquitous. So I'm just, I'm coming in and out of this environment and doing the things that I do best as an educator, as a teacher, or putting that data into our students' hands that are, so they can also make their own decisions about their learning and know, beef that metacognition up. And so I know as a learner what I need to be doing and what works best for me. And so, and ultimately even put that data in parents' hands, right? So that we can, as parents, know better how to help our students without having to know how to do algebra again, because I forgot algebra a long time ago. There are ways that, resources, and we should be putting some power in our parents' hands. And so from an IT perspective, I really think that I'm an evangelist around interconnectivity, and it doesn't matter how you're doing it. There's lots of other platforms out there that allow you to do interconnectivity. But I think that's a big piece of this, is that connectivity, that access, and that ability to strategically use that data to make informed decisions.
I always tell people, if we're forcing the end user to have to link 3 or 4 databases and then go to Excel and run some pivot tables, we got a problem.
Well, and that's what our IT
Right.
people are doing. We're not doing that to our users,
Yeah.
and that's the unfortunate, I think, waste of talent that we have in a lot of our school districts. And we've got some amazingly talented IT folks that are being relegated to doing just what you described. And to me, that's, I mean, I don't know as much about IT as you do, but that doesn't seem like a good function of an IT professional to be doing that rather than something more advanced and more focused around, the systems and really helping it, push things forward. If I'm spending all my time creating pivot tables.
Yes, it's like we need almost like some room to step back and have somebody come in and kind of design the experience for the students and the teachers. Somebody to look at the architecture of our data structures, how we're taking those inputs, and kind of reimagine what that next gen platform look like. So when the data goes in, we're taking data in a certain way, a predictable way. We're modeling it in a certain way, and then we have flexibility in the back end to distribute it to students, teachers, assistants, principals, parents. So a lot of different pieces and moving and parts there. So if you're talking to a CIO now, there's something the CIO on some of these school districts could be doing right now to help kind of bring more people together to say, hey, this is what this vision look like for the next 5 years. Here's what some of the learning opportunities are. Here's the way we can share more information and insights. How can we architect this and actually scale this, right? So every school district didn't have to individually have to figure it out on their own. I know you mentioned the open source. I know there's probably a lot of conferences that people go to, but is there anything that if somebody really want to take more leadership role here and actually bringing the folks who design it, the folks who architect it, and obviously we haven't got into the thing about privacy, right? How much data, who has access, and want to give more information to folks at home. That's issues with security and things like that. What are some of the leadership opportunities here for like a CIO to really kind of help kind of make more progress?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's vision and will, right? It's not necessarily always an easy undertaking. I think the designs, the ability, the tools, they're all out there and they exist. To your point, there's conferences, there's lots of information, there's national movements around this. There's a great national movement called Project Unicorn, which really focuses on districts taking pledges to get to interconnectivity and provides lots of information and tools around that. There's a lot of other organizations that are out there promoting and pushing these ideas. So it's not that the ideas or the path to get there does exist, right? There's somewhat of, I'm not going to say reluctance, but vendors, the software, the companies that make the big softwares also have to be part of this, right? So they've got to be able to create the APIs, keep them updated for the different ways that interconnectivity happens, because you can't just patch these things together. I think if there's these just homemade, ETLs that are tacked onto things, they break as soon as the next update is made, and so there's not this consistency. So one is looking at what's out there if I'm a CIO, and seeing what is the advantage on the learning end, right? And so this has to sort of be looked at through the perspective of the end learner, the value to the outcomes, which you started and opened up and talked about. This is about student outcomes, and so if we're focused on student outcomes and what is the value of improving student outcomes through making better decisions about learners and differentiation and all of that, then you have to backtrack from there and see, okay, what is needed? What can we handle? Again, I give a lot of credit to the IT folks with the Texas Education Agency, and the work that they've done around trying to make it more accessible for schools and school districts, no matter the size or the money, to be able to do something towards interconnectivity, right? And so I see a lot of great leadership coming out of the technology folks that are with the Texas Education Agency right now in pushing this forward, as well as some other states. I think Michigan's another example of where they've done a lot of this great work. There's a few other states that have really taken this work on and really are focused around trying to make interconnectivity a reality. And so to me, that's the biggest conversation is what does that look like for your school district? I think at a local school level, what can be done at a local school level, but really at the school district level and the CIO level, there's a will that has to be there because it's not so difficult, it's not impossible, right? But there's certainly priorities that need to be set. And, to me, it's also trying to get away from the notion that this type of move will somehow impact the importance of IT or take away people's jobs, because I don't think that that's the case. I think that is where things get blocked. If nobody needs you to make pivot tables anymore, they will use your talents for better things, right?
Yeah.
You will have a better experience as an employee. You will get to use your talents and the things that you were trained to do better. It's, there's nothing in your job description that probably says that that's what you're supposed to be doing, but that's what you end up doing, right? And so to me, it's really that sort of will and vision to make this sort of thing happen on the back end. And really it is mostly back end work. And so I'm glad we're talking about IT and CIOs and our technology folks in school districts, because they're the ones that will make this reality happen, not the teachers, not the administrators. They don't, they're the end users of what our talented IT folks and CIOs can do.
Yeah, because I think everybody's going to start to feel even more pressure, right? So every day the end user, the parent, right, is inundated with promise of AI, and they're going to their corporate jobs and like all this cool things are happening. And then they may be picking their kids up and like, man, why is this school behind? So I can see more and more pressure at the voter block, at the ballot box, more referendums, and just more market pressure. Say, hey, are the school districts in other areas doing better than this one? And then sometimes that kind of creates the impetus to say, oh, our district needs to pick up the pace, or our school needs to pick up the pace. What do you guys need to do to make this work? So it's interesting what external pressure sometimes will do to kind of get things moving. But anytime anyone's trying to do job security, it's like, as we've seen in all industries across the board, right? Technology is moving. There's a lot of impetus for more opportunities. And normally market forces are the one that's actually eventually will push and say, you just got to do it. So you might as well get on the front end of it to help control this and maybe help your career pathing where you have more choice on it, as opposed to waiting 2, 3, or 5 years and saying, someone pushed it upon us. So I think it's kind of a great opportunity for everybody to kind of like, let's start to vision this now. Let's start to go behind the scenes, look at the plumbing. What do we need to do for this 3-year or 4-year plan that's going to take us to get to where we need to go here?
Yeah, well, if I can get on my soapbox for a minute, the market forces in education are slightly different, right? I think that the parents and the teachers and even, within the system, you can push all you want, but I think the real market forces really revolve around policy and funding. Right. And so what we saw is a lot of funding that came through during the pandemic and that pushed out a lot of technology and a lot of online learning. If you have different laws that are policies or laws that are passed here in Texas, that's part of this, is everyone is sort of being policy driven towards moving towards interconnectivity in a way. And those are the, sadly, that's the market force in education, because the bottom line is not my stockholders or the income I'm bringing in. It's you're only in the L column in the education space. There is no P column there, and so the outcomes piece with the students is what drives it. but its policy and its funding, whether it's through grants or through different sorts of funding mechanisms, that really will drive the prioritization of this type of work. And that's, to me, the fortunate or unfortunate reality of education, especially public education. So if parents want to put pressure, it's putting pressure on lawmakers, to push the funding or to push the mandates to do these sorts of things. Because right now with AI, what we'll get is we'll get one-off software programs that are great. There's some amazing software out there that's coming out that is AI driven. There's some just amazing stuff happening on the learning side. But again, you're talking about for just that subject or that particular topic.
Okay.
Right. And so it's not this comprehensive. So if I just have this one program that focuses on, reading comprehension, let's say, what about the 10 other programs that, again, think about the adult on the other side of this. Like, how many programs can I track and use data from separately? And while some of these are effective in their lane, you can maybe get better at this one thing by using this. How do you broaden that and connect? Because we don't learn just in isolation.
Right.
All of these skills are crossover into all of the different areas. So, we know that about reading, but it's true about other subjects as well, that all of this stuff is interconnected when it comes into our brains and how we learn and how we grow as human beings.
This has been fantastic, Scott. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about before we close it out?
No, I just make again, if this is, if you're an IT professional or you're a CIO, you are driving this. I think security is at top of mind for our technology folks, as it should be. But that shouldn't drive every decision. It needs to be taken into consideration and paid attention to. But if we're blocking everything because of potential security concerns, I would say go back, think about it, think about how the security will work, but prioritize getting the interconnectivity done, getting the data into the hands of the teachers so that they can make those better decisions about how students learn.
Awesome. I love it, Scott. So I'm looking forward to what the next decade look like. So I'm hoping in the next decade to be able to go into the classroom and say, it reminds me of the Jetsons.
Yes, I would like that.
I will not be able to recognize this.
I would like that too. I think we can get there. Again, it's just priorities and will at this point to do it.
I love it, Scott. Yeah. Hey, man, I appreciate your time today, helping bring some knowledge to us onto the intersection of technology and education and ways that all of us in IT and IT leadership can make a difference in this world, man. So I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, William. Thanks for having me. And this is important work that you're doing. So I appreciate you bringing this out there into the world.
All right. Thanks a lot. That's been another episode of the Smart IT Podcast. Look forward to meeting and greeting you guys next week on another episode. In the meantime, you can get more information at williamreed.info. In the meantime, take care. Thanks for joining another episode of the Smart IT Podcast, where we explore what's next for IT and disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk together. If you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and leave your comments. And for more Smart IT wisdom, check out my website at williamreed.info.